AITA for refusing to let my brother move in with my family after he lost his job, which caused a massive family conflict. I, 42F, have a younger brother, Matt, 36M, who has always been impulsive and a bit reckless with finances. Growing up, he was charming, funny, and adventurous, but also irresponsible and prone to making bad decisions. Over the years, he's had trouble holding steady jobs and managing his money. I've tried to support him emotionally and financially when necessary, but I've also learned that setting boundaries is crucial because enabling him often leads to more problems rather than solutions. Recently, Matt was laid off from a construction job he had held for 3 years. He called me in a panic, saying that he couldn't pay rent and would be evicted within a week. He asked if he could move in with me and my family until he got back on his feet. My husband, Paul, 45M, and I have 2 children, ages 7 and 5, and we live in a modest 2-bedroom house. We have a very structured household with routines, schedules, and responsibilities, and I immediately felt uneasy about the idea of adding an adult with no income and a history of financial instability to our home. I told Matt that he could not move in permanently, but I offered alternatives. I suggested short-term rentals, staying with friends, or local programs that assist with emergency housing. I also offered to help cover part of the rent for a temporary place, help him find a new job, assist with budgeting, and support him in any way that wouldn't disrupt my household. I emphasized that I wanted to help him, but I could not compromise my family's stability and my children's routines. Matt became extremely upset. He accused me of being selfish and unsupportive, claiming that family should step up in times of crisis. He said that refusing to let him move in was cruel and that I was prioritizing my comfort over helping a family member in need. I tried to explain that supporting him didn't require him to live with us and that I was offering practical solutions that would actually help him regain independence without creating chaos in my home. He refused to listen. The conflict escalated when Matt called our parents. They immediately sided with him, saying I should let him move in and that my refusal was heartless. I explained calmly that I was not refusing to help, but that allowing him to move in could disrupt the household, stress the children, and create long-term problems. I reminded them of past instances where Matt stayed with family temporarily and ended up overstaying, ignoring house rules, or causing tension. Our parents accused me of being cold and prioritizing my own convenience over family loyalty. Things came to a head during a family gathering. Matt confronted me directly, shouting that I was being controlling and uncaring, and claiming I was punishing him for circumstances beyond his control. He said I had no compassion and that family should always support each other. My parents reinforced his accusations, saying I needed to compromise and that I was creating unnecessary conflict. Paul tried to intervene, pointing out that adding an adult to our household without income could create stress, disrupt routines, and potentially escalate into conflict with the children. Matt dismissed his concerns, claiming we were overreacting. Extended family members tried to mediate. Some suggested temporary solutions, like letting Matt stay in the basement or a spare bedroom for a few days. But I explained that even a short-term stay could easily turn into weeks or months given his history. I also reiterated that I had offered financial support for temporary housing, help finding employment, and assistance with budgeting, all of which he refused. Matt insisted that moving in with us was the only acceptable option. After the confrontation, Matt left angrily and has since sent numerous passive-aggressive messages, implying that I don't care about him or family. Our parents continue to express disappointment, saying I should have just given in, and that my refusal has caused emotional harm. Some extended relatives sympathize with me, recognizing the challenges of hosting an adult with no income and a history of ignoring rules, while others criticize me for not doing enough to help. Family gatherings have become tense, and the conflict has lingered for weeks. I feel conflicted. On one hand, I acted responsibly by prioritizing my family's stability and my children's well-being while still offering practical ways to help Matt. On the other hand, my decision has caused significant tension with my brother and parents, leaving me feeling guilty and questioning whether I could have handled it differently. I've tried to provide constructive support without compromising my household, but my efforts were rejected and interpreted as cruelty. I've considered allowing a very short-term stay under strict conditions, but I know from past experience that even a brief stay could quickly extend and create more conflict. I also worry that allowing him to move in would reinforce a pattern of dependency that prevents him from learning responsibility. I want to support Matt, but I cannot compromise my household, my children's stability, or my husband's peace of mind. So, AITA for refusing to let my brother move in with my family after he lost his job, even though it caused a massive family fight and upset our parents? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious. When do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding after she publicly shamed me on social media. I, 28F, come from a fairly large extended family, and most of us are quite close. My cousin, Rachel, 30F, has always been the type to have a very curated image online. Everything from perfectly posed family photos to inspirational quotes about gratitude and kindness. Growing up, I always admired her for being organized and seemingly thoughtful. But as we got older, I started noticing that a lot of her online persona doesn't match reality. She has a tendency to exaggerate, create drama, and manipulate situations to make herself look like the victim or the hero. I kept this mostly to myself because family gatherings have always been important to me, and I didn't want to create tension. About a month ago, Rachel announced her engagement on social media. Immediately after, she started sending out save-the-dates and hints about her wedding, which is scheduled for next summer. I was excited for her, honestly, and I made a mental note to start thinking about a gift and travel plans. Here's where things started to get complicated. A week after her engagement post, she shared a status that read something like, "So many people have already RSVP'd for my wedding. I just hope the ones who've always been flaky in the family actually show up. It would be embarrassing if certain people don't bother to celebrate my special day." At first, I didn't think much of it, but the phrasing made me uneasy. 2 days later, she posted a collage of photos from a family reunion a few years back, highlighting a group of us, and tagged it with, "This group could have been more supportive when it mattered." Funny how some people never show up for family events. Hoping history doesn't repeat itself for my wedding. The wording felt pointed. It was obvious she was singling me out, though she didn't tag me directly. I felt uncomfortable and hurt, but I chalked it up to her being dramatic online. Then came the message. Rachel sent a group chat to all the extended cousins, including me, with a wedding RSVP link. It read, "Hey everyone, please RSVP as soon as possible. I know some of you have been known to ghost family events, and it would really mean a lot if we could count on each of you this time. Love you all." My stomach sank because it was extremely passive-aggressive. My younger brother chimed in jokingly, saying, "I think she means you," and everyone laughed. I felt humiliated, but I didn't respond. I decided to reach out privately, thinking maybe I was overreacting. I sent Rachel a message saying, "Hey, I just wanted to check in. Your posts and messages lately feel like they're directed at me. Did I do something to upset you?" Her reply was cold. "Honestly, I don't want to get into it. Just make sure you RSVP. I'd really like everyone there, including you." At this point, I realized that any attempt at conversation would probably just make me look like I was in the wrong, even though I hadn't actually done anything. The next day, she posted another story, a screenshot of a text conversation between her and my aunt where my aunt asked about me RSVPing. The caption read, "I guess some people need reminders to care. Sad." This was too much for me. Publicly shaming me, even indirectly, crossed the line. I have always been someone who shows up for family events and supports milestones, and yet Rachel was portraying me as uncaring or unreliable. I decided not to attend the wedding. I sent her a private message explaining my reasons. "I won't be attending your wedding. The way you've publicly shamed me online and in family chats makes me feel disrespected and unwelcome. I hope your day is beautiful, but I can't be part of an event where I feel humiliated." I also offered to send a gift if she wanted, but she didn't respond. Since then, my family has been divided. Some relatives say I should have just RSVP'd and ignored her posts, arguing that the wedding is about her and I shouldn't make it about me. Others agree that her behavior was manipulative and humiliating and that I'm justified in setting boundaries. Rachel has posted a story implying that I'm holding grudges and punishing her for no reason, which is confusing to many in the family who know how passive-aggressive and public her shaming has been. A few friends have suggested that I might be overreacting and that weddings are sensitive events where people expect certain appearances from family members. But I genuinely feel like being made to look like the bad family member for no reason violates my trust and dignity. I've considered attending quietly and pretending nothing happened, but the thought of being around people who have already laughed at me and seeing Rachel enjoy this perfect day while continuing to misrepresent me online feels unbearable. I also worry about the long-term family dynamics. I don't want to create permanent estrangement, but I also feel that setting boundaries is necessary for my mental health. I've received messages from distant relatives saying things like, "It's just a wedding, don't make it a feud," and others defending me, saying no one should be publicly shamed by a family member for not meeting their expectations. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding after she publicly shamed me on social media and in group chats. Even though she has always been someone who enjoys projecting drama and controlling narratives online, I feel torn because I don't want to be seen as the problem in the family, but I also don't want to sacrifice my own dignity and boundaries for the sake of appearances. I could provide more context about our family dynamics if needed, but this is the gist of why I made my decision. I've considered compromise, but every option seems like it would leave me feeling disrespected or humiliated. AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she accused me of not supporting her dream. I, 28F, have always had a complicated relationship with my older sister, Emily, 33F. Growing up, she was the golden child, the one who excelled in school, sports, and social situations, while I often felt invisible. Our parents, though loving, frequently compared us, which only intensified my insecurities. Despite this, we've always maintained a cordial relationship as adults, and I genuinely wanted to support her, especially when she got engaged to her fiancé, Mark, 34M, 2 years ago. Emily's fiancé is wonderful in many ways, kind, thoughtful, and clearly devoted to her. The wedding planning, however, has been a nightmare for me. From the very beginning, Emily made it clear that she expected me to contribute both financially and emotionally in ways that felt unreasonable. She outlined a specific budget for my share of the wedding costs, $5,000, which I could not comfortably afford. I offered to help in other ways, such as assisting with decorations, organizing guest lists, or even helping with catering logistics, but Emily insisted that money was the most important form of support. As the planning progressed, Emily's demands escalated. She expected me to attend all pre-wedding events, including a series of weekend-long parties and bridal showers, some of which involved traveling out of state. I work full-time as a nurse, and while I love my job, the schedule is exhausting and inflexible. I explained that I could attend some of the events, but not all, and that I could contribute in other meaningful ways. She brushed off my suggestions and accused me of being selfish and unsupportive. The breaking point came last month. Emily asked me to pay for an extra part of the wedding that wasn't originally discussed, a private rehearsal dinner for her family and close friends, totaling $2,500. I explained that my financial situation simply couldn't accommodate this request. I offered to host a small pre-wedding gathering for her friends instead, at my own expense, which would have been around $500. Emily reacted explosively, calling me cheap and heartless, saying I didn't care about her dream wedding. I felt blindsided and hurt. I've never questioned her dream, and I've always wanted her to have a beautiful wedding. But the level of financial expectation she placed on me felt exploitative. I tried reasoning calmly, saying that I could contribute in non-monetary ways and that I was willing to help wherever possible. Emily would not hear it. She accused me of holding grudges from childhood and not celebrating her happiness. Our parents have taken her side, arguing that weddings are once-in-a-lifetime events and that family should go above and beyond to support the bride. They say that my refusal to pay the additional $2,500 makes me the villain and that I'm creating unnecessary tension. I explained that my support is not conditional on money and that I am willing to help in other ways, but they insist that my financial contribution is non-negotiable. I try to reach a compromise. I propose contributing a total of $1,500 upfront toward the main wedding expenses, which is already a stretch for me, and attending all key events that don't require additional spending. I also offered to help plan and organize her bridal shower, contribute to DIY decorations, and assist with day of coordination. Emily refused. She said that anything less than full financial support for all aspects of the wedding meant I was ruining her dream. Things escalated when I told Emily that if she continued insisting on me paying the $2,500 for the rehearsal dinner, I might need to bow out entirely. She started messaging our family group chat, saying that I was selfish and unsisterly, and that my behavior was damaging the family dynamic. My friends have been supportive, telling me that her expectations are unreasonable, but I can't shake the guilt, especially because my parents keep pressing me. I've been reflecting on whether I'm being unfair. I've always been financially responsible and have offered significant support in other ways. I feel like Emily has weaponized our childhood dynamics and family pressure to guilt me into paying more than I can afford. I genuinely want her wedding to be beautiful, but I also need to maintain my financial stability. I decided to draw a firm boundary yesterday. I sent Emily a message stating that I would contribute $1,500 toward the main wedding expenses, attend key events I can afford, and assist in planning and decorating. I emphasized that my refusal to pay for the rehearsal dinner was not a lack of love or support, but a necessary limit based on my finances. Emily responded with a long, accusatory message saying that I am choosing money over family and that I'm destroying the relationship we've built. Now I feel like I'm caught between a rock and a hard place. I don't want to lose my sister, but I also don't want to be financially ruined for a wedding I'm not hosting. I've offered alternative ways to contribute, but they have been rejected. My parents are upset, and Emily is furious. I'm questioning whether I'm genuinely being unreasonable or if Emily is taking advantage of my good intentions. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to pay $2,500 for my sister's rehearsal dinner, even though I've offered significant help and financial support elsewhere. I want to support her in every way I reasonably can, but I also need to maintain my boundaries and financial well-being. Is it wrong of me to draw the line here? Or am I justified in setting limits while still being there for my sister in other ways? AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend move in after a breakup. I, 28F, have always been the responsible one in my family. I have a steady job as a graphic designer, a small but cozy apartment in a quiet neighborhood, and I take pride in maintaining my personal space. My sister, Emily, 25F, on the other hand, has always been more spontaneous. She's kind and generous, but she's also a bit impulsive and tends to rely on other people when she's going through tough times. A few months ago, Emily started dating someone named Jason, 27M. They had been together for about a year, and while I didn't dislike him, I didn't feel particularly close to him either. Emily's relationship with Jason was very intense, and she was very attached, sometimes to the point of neglecting her own friends and family. I was supportive, but I always felt a little uneasy about how much of her life she was giving over to him. About 2 months ago, Emily and Jason broke up. According to her, it was an amicable breakup, but I could tell she was struggling emotionally. She called me crying several times, asking for advice and support. I did my best to be there for her, without getting too involved in her personal drama. A week after the breakup, Emily dropped a bombshell. She told me that Jason had no place to stay and was asking if he could move in with her temporarily. I was immediately uncomfortable with the idea. For context, Emily lives with our parents, so it wasn't her apartment she was offering. I, on the other hand, live alone, and while my apartment is small, I have always been very protective of my space. I explained to Emily that I couldn't have Jason move in. I told her that I had personal boundaries and that having an ex-boyfriend in my apartment, even temporarily, would be extremely stressful for me. She reacted poorly. She said I was being selfish, that Jason was going through a rough patch and didn't deserve to be on the streets, and that I was choosing comfort over family. She even suggested that maybe I didn't really care about her if I wasn't willing to help. I tried to explain that I was sympathetic to Jason's situation, but my apartment isn't meant for guests long-term. I offered to help him find a hotel or a short-term rental, but Emily insisted that I was overreacting. She said, "It's just for a few weeks. You're making this way bigger than it is." I remained firm, explaining that a few weeks could easily turn into months, and I didn't want to put myself in a position where I'd feel resentful or stressed every day. Emily then tried to appeal to my sense of family duty. She said, "When I helped you through your breakup last year, you didn't hesitate to let me stay. Don't you think it's fair to return the favor?" I reminded her that I had space to accommodate her and that our situations were different. I also said that my decision wasn't about me not caring. It was about maintaining boundaries that preserve my mental health. Things escalated. Emily accused me of being cold and unloving. She suggested that if I truly loved her, I would find a way to make it work. She even tried guilt-tripping me by saying that Jason had nowhere else to go and that I was turning him away when he needed a friend. I stayed calm, but it was incredibly frustrating. I felt like I was being punished for protecting my own mental space, and the conversation ended with Emily storming out, saying she was disappointed in me. The next day, my parents called me. They had spoken to Emily and were upset that I wouldn't let Jason move in. They said I was being unnecessarily rigid and that family should help each other in times of need. I tried to explain my side again, emphasizing the importance of boundaries and the difference between temporary help and long-term arrangements that affect my life and well-being. They listened, but I could tell they were still disappointed. Emily, meanwhile, decided to take matters into her own hands. She spent the next few days calling friends and even some distant relatives, try to find a place for Jason. Eventually, he ended up staying with a friend, which resolved the immediate issue, but the tension between Emily and me has lingered. She hasn't spoken to me much since then, and my parents have hinted that I should reconsider my position for the sake of family harmony. I've started feeling guilty. On one hand, I could truly believe that letting Jason move in would have been a bad idea for me mentally and emotionally. On the other hand, I feel like I'm being portrayed as cold and uncaring by my own sister and parents. I've been reflecting on whether I could have handled the situation differently, perhaps by setting firmer boundaries earlier or by helping in some other way that didn't involve having him live with me. I know some people might say I could have compromised by allowing him to stay for a very short period or by helping him find a more immediate solution. But even a short stay would have disrupted my life, and I worry that it would have set a precedent for future situations. I've always believed that family should respect each other's limits, not expect people to sacrifice their comfort for every temporary crisis. So, I'm asking AITA for refusing to let my sister's ex-boyfriend move into my apartment after their breakup. I feel like I acted in a way that preserved my boundaries and mental well-being, but I also feel the strain of family judgment and guilt. I want to know if there's a way to navigate situations like this in the future without feeling like I'm betraying my family or myself. I'm open to constructive feedback. I want to understand if I was genuinely unreasonable or if I was justified in prioritizing my personal space and boundaries. AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding after what happened at my own wedding. I, 28F, have always been close with my extended family, especially my cousins, but something happened that has completely changed my relationship with them. I'm hoping for some perspective because right now I feel like I might be overreacting, but I also feel deeply hurt and disrespected. Last year, I got married to my partner, Mark, 30M. We had been together for 7 years, and we both agreed we wanted a small, intimate wedding. I have a very large extended family, and Mark has a smaller, close-knit family. From the start, we decided to cap the guest list to immediate family and our closest friends because we wanted the day to feel personal and meaningful, not overwhelming. When we sent out invitations, almost everyone in my family respected the decision except for my cousin, Lisa, 26F. She immediately started complaining that she wasn't being invited to my wedding. I explained that it was a numbers thing, that it wasn't personal, and that I hoped she would understand. Lisa didn't. Instead, she told my aunt, her mom, and uncle that I was excluding her on purpose and that this would ruin the family dynamic. She also started posting passive-aggressive messages on social media, like some families just don't care about each other. My parents were mortified but tried to smooth things over. I stuck to my guns because the list was set, and I knew that giving in would have just made things chaotic. The wedding itself went well, but Lisa didn't attend. A few of my other cousins did attend, and they later told me that Lisa had been telling people that my wedding had no love, no real family, and was clearly a disaster. I tried to shrug it off at the time because I thought, okay, people say hurtful things, and I can't control that. But it still stung. I even found out through a friend that she had called my wedding planner the week before the wedding to complain that she wasn't invited. That felt like a major boundary violation, but we were so focused on enjoying the day that we didn't engage with it. Fast forward to last month, Lisa got engaged and announced her wedding date. When I got the invitation, I was shocked. Not because I wasn't invited, but because it was clearly a huge event. Over 200 guests, a destination wedding, fancy hotels, the whole thing. The irony is that her engagement party was also huge, and she had invited almost the entire extended family. The message was clear. She expected the family to drop everything to celebrate her big day. When I told Mark about it, he immediately suggested we go because it's family and we can't let her antics dictate our choices. I debated it for a few days, but as I thought about it, I remembered all the things she did surrounding my wedding. The complaining, the social media posts, the calls to my wedding planner, and the way she tried to manipulate our family. I realized that I didn't feel excited about celebrating with her. I felt resentful. So I sent her a message explaining that while I am happy for her and wish her the best, I won't be attending her wedding. I try to keep it neutral and polite, mentioning financial reasons as well, because it was a destination wedding. I didn't expect it to be an issue, but the response I got from her and some family members was shocking. Lisa sent me a long, dramatic message saying I was being selfish, petty, and cruel, and that I was showing the same behavior that caused her to feel excluded at my wedding. My aunt called me and told me that I was overreacting and that I needed to put aside old grudges for the sake of family harmony. Other cousins messaged me saying I was making everything about myself again and that I should just suck it up and go. I tried to explain my perspective, that I didn't feel comfortable attending because of past behavior and because I genuinely do not feel close to Lisa, but the response was basically a collective eye roll and some guilt-tripping about family obligations. Mark has been supportive, saying I shouldn't have to force myself into situations that make me uncomfortable. But part of me wonders if I'm really in the wrong. I keep thinking, should I just go to keep peace? But I also feel like doing so would validate the idea that it's okay for her to manipulate family dynamics, guilt others, and disrespect boundaries without consequence. To complicate things further, other family members are now trying to pressure me with statements like, "Your absence will ruin the wedding," or "You're making her day about you," which feels unfair. I understand that weddings are about celebration, but when the person getting married has a history of deliberately undermining your own wedding, it's hard for me to see it as purely joyful. I've considered sending a gift, but I'm hesitant because I feel like it might be seen as tacit approval of her behavior. I want to acknowledge her milestone without condoning the way she treated me and manipulated family dynamics. I also feel trapped because if I skip the wedding, I might be labeled as the bad cousin, which isn't exactly fair given the history. I've talked to a few close friends outside the family, and they mostly support my decision, saying that boundaries are important and that family obligations shouldn't come at the cost of your mental health. But inside the family, it feels like I'm being vilified for standing up for myself. I can't shake the feeling that I'm being asked to reward bad behavior and pretend nothing happened. So, AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding because of how she treated me and my wedding. I feel like I'm protecting my boundaries, but the backlash from the family is making me second-guess myself. I'm willing to attend future family events, like birthdays or holidays, but this one feels different because of the past history and the intensity of the wedding itself. I don't want to escalate drama, but I also don't want to feel like I'm being coerced into a situation where I'll feel unwelcome or judged. I hope someone can help me see this situation more clearly because, right now, I feel like I'm stuck between standing up for myself and being labeled the villain in my own family story. AITA for not letting my younger sister's fiancé have a say in my wedding decisions. I, 32F, have always been extremely organized, especially when it comes to major life events. When my fiancé and I got engaged last year, I immediately started drafting plans for the wedding, focusing on details from the venue to the catering and even the playlists. I wanted the day to reflect both of us, but I also have a very clear vision of what I want. My younger sister, Emily, 28F, has always been a bit of a free spirit and has a fiancé, Mark, 30M, who tends to follow her lead. They got engaged about 6 months after we did. They are great people, and I love them both, but there's always been a bit of tension between my planning style and Mark's input, which can sometimes come across as overbearing, though I always try to chalk it up to him just being enthusiastic. When I started my wedding planning, I invited Emily and Mark to the first discussion about dates and venues. Emily was supportive, but Mark started suggesting things. First, it was about the venue. He said that a certain place would be more Instagrammable and would provide better opportunities for photos with his camera equipment. I politely told him that we had already made our choice and were happy with it. He didn't push too hard at that point, so I thought nothing of it. The first major conflict came with the guest list. My fiancé and I had already decided on an intimate wedding, mostly family and close friends, totaling around 70 people. Mark insisted that some of his friends, who I barely knew and had never met or mentioned before, should be invited. I explained that we had limited space and that it wouldn't be fair to invite people we didn't personally know. He argued that weddings are also social gatherings and that our friends should meet as friends. I remained firm and reiterated that this was our wedding and that we needed to keep the list manageable. Emily tried to mediate, suggesting maybe a small pre-wedding party where their friends could join, but Mark was not satisfied. He started commenting on almost every minor detail, from table arrangements to flower choices. I began to feel like he was trying to assert some level of control over my wedding, even though he was not paying for anything and wasn't part of the couple getting married. I tried to set boundaries. I told Mark that we appreciated his enthusiasm, but I wanted to make these decisions with my fiancé and myself. Emily supported this, but I could tell she felt torn because she didn't want to upset her fiancé. I even created a shared Google Doc where Emily and Mark could leave suggestions, but I clearly marked that these were only suggestions, not obligations. That seemed to calm things for a while. The problem escalated when it came to the ceremony itself. I had always wanted a traditional wedding with a formal dress code and a very structured program. Mark suggested we include a fun ritual where guests could throw biodegradable glitter in the air during our vows. I explained that while I liked creative ideas, I wanted the ceremony to remain traditional and focused on the vows. He responded with a kind of sarcastic tone, asking, "So nothing fun at all? Are you sure your guests won't get bored?" I tried to brush it off, but I could feel tension growing. Things came to a head last month when I hired a photographer. I found someone whose style I loved and who was highly recommended. Mark immediately questioned the choice, saying that this photographer wouldn't capture the right kind of candid moments, and suggested someone he knew who was cheaper. I was taken aback because I didn't ask for his input and it felt very intrusive. I told him politely that we had already hired the photographer and were happy with our decision. He rolled his eyes and muttered something about families who don't appreciate art. At this point, Emily started expressing frustration. She said she felt caught in the middle and that Mark had a right to be included in family events because they were soon going to be married too. I tried to explain that being married to my sister didn't automatically give him veto power over our wedding decisions. Emily said she understood, but I could tell she still felt conflicted. 2 weeks ago, Mark sent me a long text listing concerns and suggestions for everything from the menu. He wanted more vegan options, to the seating chart. He wanted the groomsmen seated closer to the DJ. I read it and replied firmly, but politely, that I appreciated his input, but that the decisions were ours to make. I also told Emily that I needed her to reinforce this with him, not to argue with me about my choices. Emily agreed and said she would talk to him. Yesterday, Mark showed up at our dress fitting uninvited. He had apparently driven to the store from out of town and started giving opinions on the dresses, saying that some were too conservative or too boring. The store staff seemed uncomfortable, and I had to ask him to leave. He got defensive and said, "I just want the bride to look amazing," but I reminded him that the bride was making the decision. Emily called me later, upset, saying that Mark was angry and that she didn't know how to make him understand that this wasn't his place. Now, there's tension between my sister and me because she thinks I might have hurt Mark's feelings. I feel like I have every right to make decisions about my own wedding and that Mark is overstepping. I want my sister to support me, not to take his side. My fiancé fully backs me up and has been my rock through all of this. I'm starting to wonder if I'm being unreasonable or too rigid. Should I have tried to include Mark more? Or is it fair to expect him to respect that he is not in charge of my wedding? AITA? AITA for refusing to let my brother and his girlfriend move in after they got evicted, which caused a huge family conflict. I, 41F, have a younger brother, Alex, 35M, who has always been somewhat reckless and impulsive. He's intelligent and charming, but he rarely considers the long-term consequences of his decisions. Over the years, Alex has had financial struggles and unstable living situations, and I've often tried to support him while also maintaining boundaries because enabling him usually just prolongs the problems. Recently, Alex and his girlfriend, Mia, 33F, were evicted from their apartment because they fell behind on rent and ignored multiple warnings from their landlord. A few days after the eviction, Alex called me, panicked and upset, asking if he and Mia could move in with me temporarily until they figured things out. My husband, David, 44M, and I have 2 children, ages 7 and 5, and a structured household. We have routines for school, homework, meals, and chores, and adding 2 adults with no income and a history of instability immediately felt overwhelming. I told Alex and Mia that they could not move in permanently, but I offered alternatives. I could help cover part of a short-term rental, assist with groceries, help them find jobs, and provide guidance on budgeting. I also offered to help connect them with community resources that could provide temporary housing or financial assistance. Alex insisted, however, that moving in with me was the only solution. He argued that families should step up in times of crisis and that refusing them was selfish and cruel. The situation escalated when Alex called our parents. They immediately sided with him, saying I should let him and Mia stay and that refusing them was heartless. I tried to explain that I wasn't refusing to help. I was offering practical support that would actually help them regain stability without disrupting my household or creating stress for my children. I reminded my parents of past instances where Alex stayed with family temporarily and ended up overstaying, ignoring rules, and creating tension. My parents accused me of prioritizing convenience over family loyalty. The breaking point came during a family gathering. Alex and Mia confronted me directly, accusing me of being controlling and unkind. Alex said I was punishing him for making mistakes and that I didn't care about him or Mia. Mia added that family should always help, and refusing to let them move and showed a lack of compassion. My parents reinforced their arguments, saying I should compromise and that my refusal was damaging family relationships. David tried to intervene, pointing out that having 2 adults with no income living in our house would disrupt routines, create stress for our children, and potentially lead to ongoing conflict. Alex dismissed his concerns, claiming I was overreacting. Extended family members tried to mediate. Some suggested compromises, such as letting Alex and Mia stay in the basement or a guest room for a few days. I explained that even short-term arrangements could quickly turn into weeks or months, given their history of ignoring boundaries. I also emphasized that I had offered constructive support that did not involve moving in, all of which they had rejected. Alex and Mia refused any alternative solutions that didn't involve living with us. After the confrontation, Alex and Mia left angrily. They have since sent passive-aggressive messages implying that I don't care about them or family. My parents remain upset, saying I should have just given in and that my refusal caused unnecessary emotional harm. Some extended relatives support me, recognizing the potential stress and disruption of hosting two adults with no income and a history of disregarding rules, while others criticize me for not doing enough to help. Family gatherings have become tense, and the dispute has lingered for weeks. I feel conflicted. On one hand, I acted responsibly by prioritizing the stability of my household, my children's well-being, and my husband's peace of mind, while still offering practical ways to help Alex and Mia. On the other hand, my decision has caused significant tension with Alex, Mia, and my parents, leaving me feeling guilty and questioning whether I could have handled it differently. I've tried to provide support without compromising my household, but my efforts were rejected and misinterpreted as cruelty. I've considered allowing a very short-term stay under strict conditions, but past experience makes me worry that even a brief stay could extend indefinitely and create more conflict. I also fear that letting them move in would reinforce a pattern of dependency and prevent them from taking responsibility. I want to support Alex and Mia, but I cannot jeopardize my household, children's routines, or husband's peace of mind. So, AITA for refusing to let my brother and his girlfriend move in after they were evicted, even though it caused a massive family fight and upset our parents. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. I, 28F, have always been close to my younger sister, Lily, 26F. Growing up, we were practically inseparable, even through our teenage drama and the occasional fight over trivial things. Our parents always said we had a bond that couldn't be broken. I genuinely believed that until recently. Lily started dating her fiancé, Mark, 30M, about 2 years ago. At first, I didn't think much of him. He seemed nice enough, polite at family gatherings, and appeared genuinely interested in Lily's life and happiness. I made an effort to get to know him, and for a while, everything seemed okay. But over time, little things began to bother me, things that didn't sit right. Mark has this habit of putting people down in a way that's disguised as joking. He'll make a comment about someone's appearance, career, or even personality, then laugh it off as if it's harmless. At first, I try to brush it off, telling myself that maybe he didn't know better or that I was being too sensitive. But it kept happening, and I started noticing a pattern. He rarely, if ever, compliments anyone, and when he does, it feels forced. He often dominates conversations and expects people to laugh at his jokes, even when they're at someone else's expense. The tipping point came a few months ago during a family dinner at my parents' house. My cousin had just gotten a promotion, and Mark proceeded to comment on how it wasn't that impressive and made a comparison to someone else's career path. My cousin was visibly uncomfortable, and I felt a mix of anger and embarrassment. I politely asked him to stop, but he waved it off and said, "I'm just keeping it real. People need honesty." I tried to let it go, but left a bad taste in my mouth. I started noticing that he was also extremely controlling towards Lily. He would constantly question her choices, from what she wore to the friends she spent time with. He often interrupted her during conversations and would correct her in front of others. At first, she laughed it off and told me I was overreacting, but over time, I saw her becoming more withdrawn and anxious, especially around him. A few weeks ago, Lily announced that she and Mark were getting married. I was happy for her, but part of me was hesitant about Mark. I brought up some of my concerns with my parents and a few close friends. Most of them said I was overthinking things and that I should just be happy for her. But my unease didn't go away. Then, 2 weeks ago, I witnessed something that completely changed my perspective. I was at Lily's apartment helping her prepare for the wedding, and Mark came over unexpectedly. He immediately started criticizing the way she had arranged the living room and questioned her taste in decor. When she defended her choices, he made a sarcastic remark about her poor judgment and laughed. I was shocked and confronted him about his behavior, telling him that he had no right to talk to her that way and that it wasn't acceptable to treat people like that, especially someone you're supposed to love. He got defensive, saying I was overreacting and making a big deal out of nothing. Lily seemed embarrassed and told me to calm down, saying I was ruining the mood. That night, I had a long conversation with Lily. I I tried to express my concerns without attacking Mark personally, but I was honest about how I felt. I told her I didn't want to see her treated poorly and that I couldn't, in good conscience, support the wedding if his behavior continued. She became defensive and said that she loved Mark and that I needed to respect her decision. I tried to explain that it wasn't about disrespecting her choices, but about witnessing behavior I considered toxic and harmful. She got very upset and said that I was being judgmental and controlling, which hurt because that was never my intention. The wedding date came closer and my anxiety increased. I thought about going and trying to maintain a polite distance, but I realized that being in the same room as Mark, knowing how he treats people, would be unbearable for me. I also worried that my presence might cause tension, especially since Lily seemed committed to ignoring my concerns. After a lot of reflection, I decided to decline the invitation. I sent her a message explaining that I loved her and that I wanted her to be happy, but I couldn't attend because I couldn't support the environment Mark creates. I offered to celebrate with her privately afterward. The reaction was immediate and intense. Lily didn't respond right away, but later that evening, she called me in tears. She accused me of trying to sabotage her wedding and said I was prioritizing my discomfort over her happiness. She also claimed that I was unfairly judging Mark and that he was misunderstood. My parents were caught in the middle. They understand my concerns, but also feel I should be there for my sister. My friends are divided. Some think I'm justified in protecting my mental and emotional well-being, while others think I should put aside my feelings for a day and support my sister. Since then, I haven't spoken much to Lily. She seems hurt and distant, and I hate that our relationship is strained. I've considered attending the wedding anyway to try to mend things, but the thought of being around Mark makes me feel anxious and tense. I keep questioning myself. Am I overreacting? Should I just go and try to have a good time? Or is it reasonable to set boundaries with someone who I genuinely believe treats others poorly? I know my sister is an adult and can make her own choices, but I feel conflicted because this decision has created a rift between us. I also worry that my absence will be interpreted as me not caring about her happiness, which is far from the truth. I want to support her in the ways that feel safe and healthy to me, but it's hard to navigate this without causing more tension. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior, even though she feels hurt and believes I am being unfair. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to let my sister's wedding overshadow my own milestone birthday. I, 32F, have always had a close but complicated relationship with my younger sister, Emily, 29F. Growing up, she was the golden child in our family, always excelling at school, sports, and eventually in her career, while I struggled to find my own identity. Despite this, we were very close, sharing secrets, late-night talks, and a love for ridiculous rom-com marathons. Our parents, however, were always more vocal about Emily's achievements, and as a result, I learned early to celebrate her milestones, sometimes at the expense of my own. Fast forward to adulthood, and things have started to change in subtle ways. I've worked hard in a demanding job as a marketing manager, finally earning a promotion that was years in the making. It's a role I've dreamed of for a long time, and to celebrate, I planned a birthday party that I envisioned as intimate yet special, inviting close friends and a few family members. I even rented a small, trendy event space, had a themed cake made, and organized some fun activities that reflected my interests. Here's where things started to get messy. Emily recently got engaged, and her wedding is set for the same weekend as my birthday party. Initially, I thought this would be manageable because her wedding is a much bigger event involving extended family, friends, and a destination location about 4 hours away. But then my parents started hinting that since her wedding is such a huge deal, my birthday should be scaled back or even combined with wedding festivities. I was taken aback. My birthday is a significant milestone for me. It's my first one as a newly promoted manager, a milestone I've been working toward for years, and something I wanted to celebrate on my terms. When I voiced this, my parents said they understood, but they kept bringing up how Emily's wedding is once in a lifetime and how I should understand her special day. I tried to explain that I wasn't trying to overshadow her wedding, but I deserved my own celebration. And it wasn't about competing, it was about having a meaningful experience that marked my own achievements. Things escalated when Emily herself got involved. She called me, sounding upset, and told me she felt hurt that my birthday party might take attention away from her wedding. She insisted that I shouldn't plan anything big that weekend because it would distract from her special moment. I tried to reason with her, saying that the events are completely separate. Her wedding is 4 hours away, with most guests traveling specifically for that, and my birthday party is small and local. I suggested maybe we could coordinate a way to avoid overlap in photos or attention, but she seemed unwilling to compromise. Feeling frustrated, I made the decision to proceed with my birthday party as planned. I didn't want to cancel or downsize something I had been looking forward to for months. On the day of the party, I invited my parents, my other siblings, and close friends. Emily didn't attend, citing wedding preparations and saying she couldn't celebrate while thinking about all the planning chaos. My parents showed up but seemed distant, making small comments about Emily's wedding and occasionally glancing at their phones, presumably checking on wedding updates. During the party, one of my older cousins brought up Emily's upcoming wedding multiple times, and it became clear that my family's focus was split. It felt like my milestone moment was being overshadowed despite my efforts to make it special. I tried to steer conversations toward personal achievements and shared stories, but there was an undercurrent of guilt and tension throughout the evening. After the party, my sister posted some celebratory messages on social media, tagging our parents and friends, and subtly pointing out that while she was preparing for the big day, I had my fun little celebration. I interpreted this as a dig, and I admit I got defensive, posting some vague responses that emphasized my hard work and how proud I was of my personal accomplishments. This seems to have caused a rift because now my parents are suggesting I tone it down and focus on supporting Emily. I feel torn because I genuinely wanted to celebrate my milestone birthday in a way that felt authentic to me, and I wasn't trying to compete with Emily's wedding or take attention away from her. At the same time, I understand family dynamics are delicate, and I worry that my decision might have hurt her feelings. To complicate things further, a few mutual friends have messaged me privately, saying they were uncomfortable with attention at the party and that it felt awkward having to navigate between the two events in conversation. Some have even suggested that I owe Emily a gesture or apology for not coordinating better, but I feel like I already made reasonable efforts to communicate and plan without stepping on her day. Since the party, there's been noticeable coldness from my parents and distant messages from Emily, who keeps bringing up wedding stress and implying that my party was inconsiderate. I've considered reaching out to smooth things over, but I'm worried that acknowledging her perspective too much might make me feel like I'm invalidating my own celebration. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to downsize or cancel my milestone birthday party just because it coincides with my sister's wedding. I genuinely try to be considerate, but I also feel like I deserve my own moment to celebrate achievements and life milestones without guilt or comparison. I'm struggling with balancing my own happiness and family expectations, and I don't know if I cross a line by prioritizing my birthday in this situation. AITA for refusing to let my sister use my house for her wedding despite her saying she deserves it. So, this is a bit of a long one, and I hope I can make it clear without making myself sound terrible. My 29F sister, 32F, recently got engaged, and things have been tense between us ever since. To give a bit of background, my sister and I have always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, I was the golden child in our parents' eyes, while she was the more rebellious one. I'm not saying that to excuse myself, but it's relevant because our family dynamics always play a role in everything we do. I have always tried to be supportive, but there's always been a bit of underlying competition between us. About 5 years ago, I bought my first house. It was a fixer-upper, but I poured everything I had into it. I did almost all the renovations myself, with occasional help from my friends. Over time, it became exactly what I wanted: cozy, spacious, and a reflection of my style. I love my house. It's my sanctuary. I know it's not massive or luxurious by anyone's standards, but it's mine and I'm proud of it. Fast forward to last month. My sister got engaged to her long-term boyfriend, and she immediately started talking about weddings. She wants a small, intimate ceremony, which is great, but then she casually mentioned that she would love to have it at my house. At first, I laughed because I assumed she was joking. I mean, my house is lovely, but it's not exactly a venue. It's not huge, the backyard isn't equipped for a large gathering, and I've never hosted anything over 30 people. But she insisted, saying that she deserves it because she's always had less than me. According to her, I've had all the advantages, a great job, a house she could never afford, and apparently my parents' favoritism still followed me into adulthood. I tried to explain that my house isn't really suitable for a wedding, but she brushed it off. She said she would make it work and that I was being selfish for even hesitating. I told her that hosting a wedding is not just a simple favor. It's a lot of work and stress, and I wasn't comfortable opening my home for such an event. She then started guilt-tripping me, saying that she's my sister and I should support her in every way possible. She even mentioned that my parents would be disappointed in me if I refused, which I know is manipulative because my parents tend to avoid confrontation and would probably let her have her way to keep the peace. The conversation escalated quickly. She began listing everything she sacrificed for me as a sibling, helping me move, covering for me in family arguments, etc., and concluded that it was now my turn to give back. I reminded her that helping me move or covering for me are not the same as hosting a wedding. I also pointed out that she could rent a space or even consider having it at her partner's house, but she refused to entertain those ideas. She said it would feel less special and that I'm holding her back from happiness. At this point, I realized that this wasn't just about the house. It was about control and validation. I calmly said no. I told her that I would support her in other ways, helping with planning, giving advice, or even contributing financially if needed, but my house is off limits. She then stormed out and hasn't spoken to me since. My parents, when I told them what happened, said they understand both sides but seemed slightly annoyed with me for not being a team player. My friends have told me I did the right thing, but I can't help feeling guilty. I know this is causing a family rift, and I hate that, but I also feel like my boundaries are being completely disregarded. I also want to mention that my sister has a history of manipulating situations to get what she wants. For example, she once convinced my mom to let her borrow my car for a week, only to leave it parked in a different city and blame me when it got a scratch. She also tends to dramatize situations, which makes me wonder if refusing her this time is really as terrible as she's making it out to be. Despite all this, I feel like I should be more accommodating because she's my sister and this is a big moment in her life. But at the same time, I don't think it's fair for her to guilt me into doing something I'm uncomfortable with. The tension has only increased since then. I saw a message she sent to a mutual friend saying I'm selfish, heartless, and don't care about family. It hurt to see that because while I try to stand my ground, I do genuinely care about her and our relationship. I have considered just letting it go to avoid further conflict, but I also know that once I give in, it will set a precedent that my sister can push me around whenever she wants something. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister use my house for her wedding despite her saying she deserves it. I'm trying to balance my own comfort and boundaries with family obligations, but I feel like I might be missing something. For clarity, my house is not large enough for the number of guests she wants. She's expecting about 60 to 70 people. I have other commitments and responsibilities in my house, and I genuinely don't feel comfortable with it. I also offered alternatives, like helping her plan in a rental space, assisting with decorations, or even contributing financially to secure a venue, but she refuses to consider them. I just want to maintain a healthy relationship without being taken advantage of. But now I'm questioning if my refusal is making me a terrible sister. My friends say I'm standing my ground, but my parents' disappointment is gnawing at me. I don't want this to completely fracture our relationship, but I also don't want to lose my home as a safe space. So AITA here. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after years of feeling unacknowledged and disrespected by my family. 28F, have always had a complicated relationship with my family, especially with my sister, 32F, Jessica. Growing up, I often felt like the background child. She was the golden one, excelling in school, sports, and later in her career, while I was always seen as the quiet, awkward one who just tagged along. My parents, though loving, frequently compare me to her, both openly and subtly, which I'm sure shaped a lot of my insecurities growing up. I've tried to brush it off over the years, and I've made great strides in my career and personal life, but those childhood patterns linger in unexpected ways. Recently, Jessica got engaged to her fiancé, Mark, and the planning of the wedding quickly turned into a nightmare for me. She has always been the type to demand attention, and I tried to support her as best I could, even though it often meant putting my own needs and feelings aside. When she announced her engagement, I was genuinely happy for her and expressed my excitement. But almost immediately, the wedding planning began to feel like a minefield. First, she asked me to be a bridesmaid. Normally, I would have been thrilled, but given our past, I hesitated. I was concerned that my preferences and comfort wouldn't be considered. She brushed off my concerns and insisted that it would be fun. I agreed reluctantly. Then came the first fitting. She had chosen dresses that were extremely expensive and one-size-fits-all in a way that obviously wouldn't fit me comfortably. When I politely mentioned that I might need an alteration, she scoffed and said I was overreacting, that it was just a dress, you'll survive. I was surprised by the harshness and hurt feelings, but I kept quiet, telling myself it was just part of the process. Over the next few months, the pattern continued. Invitations to pre-wedding events were either last-minute or so carefully orchestrated that my input seemed irrelevant. For example, there was a spa day with all the bridesmaids, but when I asked if my skin condition or allergies could be accommodated, she dismissed me, saying, "You're fine, just deal with it like everyone else." At the bridal shower, I was expected to entertain everyone and act cheerful, even when I felt completely out of place. I wasn't allowed to contribute much because apparently I didn't have good ideas. When I tried to suggest activities or games, she shut me down, claiming she already had everything planned. I began to feel invisible and unwelcome, despite being so involved in the planning. The breaking point came a few weeks ago. Jessica and Mark decided to have a family-only rehearsal dinner. I was told that my presence wasn't necessary, even though I was in the bridal party. When I asked if they wanted me there, they said, "It's just a small, intimate thing." That would have been fine if it had been about intimacy, but I learned later that my cousin, who had brought her boyfriend, was included in photos and dinner plans. I felt humiliated. It wasn't just that they excluded me, but they did so in a way that was clearly intentional. It was as if my contributions and presence were inconvenient rather than welcomed. I tried talking to my parents about it. I told them that I felt hurt and sidelined, that it wasn't just about the rehearsal dinner, but about a pattern of exclusion and disregard. Their response shocked me. They basically told me I was overreacting, that weddings are stressful, and that Jessica didn't mean to hurt anyone. They emphasized that I should be grateful to even be part of the wedding. I felt dismissed and frustrated, realizing that even my parents, who I thought would advocate for me, weren't taking my feelings seriously. After the rehearsal dinner fiasco, I began questioning whether I even wanted to attend the wedding. It wasn't about not loving my sister. It was about feeling like my presence wouldn't matter, that I would be treated as a prop for a special day rather than as a person with feelings. I started explaining to Jessica that I wasn't sure I could participate fully in her wedding if I continued to feel ignored. She didn't respond well. She accused me of being selfish, dramatic, and ruining her big day before it even happened. Mark also got involved, telling me that I needed to get over myself and support Jessica or risk being seen as the problem. I spent a long time reflecting on this. I considered the long-term impact of missing her wedding versus the short-term emotional toll of attending. I realized that for years, my voice had been minimized in family matters, and this was just the culmination of that. I decided I couldn't attend, and I informed my parents and Jessica. The reactions were as expected: shock, disappointment, and anger. Jessica said she couldn't believe I would punish her on her wedding day. My parents were disappointed and called me selfish again. Even some extended family members have reached out, subtly criticizing me for causing drama. I've thought a lot about the consequences, but honestly, I feel a sense of relief. It's not that I don't care about my sister. It's that I finally prioritize my own emotional well-being, something I haven't done consistently in my life. I've offered to meet with her after the wedding, to celebrate her and hear about her day, but I can't endure the week of feeling invisible, criticized, and dismissed. I'm sharing this because I know some people might see my choice as extreme or cruel. I get it. Weddings are supposed to bring people together. But in my case, it would have been a personal minefield, and attending might have reinforced years of patterns that have been damaging to my self-esteem. I feel like I'm finally standing up for myself, but the backlash from my family makes me wonder if I'm truly justified or if I'm overreacting. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding, even though it's supposed to be one of the happiest days of her life. AITA for refusing to let my cousin move in after she lost her apartment, which caused a huge family conflict. I, 40F, have a cousin, Rachel, 25F, who has always been impulsive and a little reckless when it comes to her finances. She's smart and capable, but she tends to make poor decisions without considering long-term consequences. Over the years, I've tried to support her emotionally and financially, but I've also learned that enabling her sometimes makes problems worse. Recently, Rachel's roommate kicked her out due to unpaid rent and ongoing conflicts. She called me one evening, panicked and upset, asking if she could move in with me temporarily until she got back on her feet. My husband, Mark, 42M, and I live with our 2 children, ages 8 and 5, in a house that runs on very strict routines. We have schedules for meals, homework, bedtime, and extracurricular activities, and the idea of adding an adult with no income and a history of instability felt overwhelming. I told Rachel that she could not move in permanently, but I offered alternatives. I could help her find a short-term rental, contribute to the cost of temporary housing, help her apply for jobs, and assist with budgeting. I also offered emotional support and guidance to help her regain independence. I explained that I wanted to help her, but having her live with us could create long-term stress and disrupt the household. Rachel became upset, saying that family should step up in times of crisis and that refusing her was selfish and uncaring. The situation escalated when Rachel called our parents. They immediately sided with her, saying I should let her move in and that my refusal was heartless. I tried to explain that I wasn't refusing to help, but that my offers were practical and would help her regain independence without jeopardizing the stability of my household. I reminded them of past instances where Rachel stayed with family temporarily and ended up overstaying, ignoring rules, and causing tension. My parents accused me of being selfish and said I should compromise for the sake of family. The conflict came to a head at a family gathering. Rachel confronted me directly, claiming I was being controlling and uncaring, and said I was punishing her for making mistakes. She argued that family obligations should come before household rules or convenience. My parents backed her up, saying I needed to show compassion and that my refusal was damaging family relationships. Mark tried to mediate, explaining that having an adult move in without income could disrupt routines, create stress for our children, and potentially escalate into conflict. Rachel dismissed his concerns and continued insisting that moving in with us was the only acceptable solution. Some extended family members tried to mediate, suggesting compromises such as letting Rachel stay in a spare bedroom or basement for a few days. I explained that even a short-term stay could quickly turn into weeks or months, given her history of overstaying and disregarding rules. I also emphasized that I had already offered constructive alternatives that did not involve living with us, all of which she had rejected. Rachel refused any option that didn't involve moving in. After the confrontation, Rachel left angrily and has since sent passive-aggressive messages implying that I don't care about her or family. My parents continue to express disappointment, saying I should have just given in and that my refusal caused unnecessary tension. Some extended relatives support me, recognizing the stress of hosting an adult with no income and a history of instability, while others criticize me for not doing enough. Family gatherings have become tense, and the issue has lingered for weeks. I feel conflicted. On one hand, I acted responsibly by prioritizing the stability of my household, my children's well-being, and my husband's peace of mind while still offering practical ways to help Rachel. On the other hand, my decision has caused significant tension with Rachel and my parents, leaving me feeling guilty and questioning whether I could have handled it differently. I've tried to provide support without compromising my household, but my efforts were rejected and interpreted as cruelty. I've considered allowing a very short-term stay under strict conditions, but past experience makes me worry that even a brief stay could extend indefinitely and create more conflict. I also fear that allowing her to move in would reinforce a pattern of dependency and prevent her from learning responsibility. I genuinely want to support Rachel, but I cannot jeopardize my household, my children's routines, or my husband's peace of mind. So, AITA for refusing to let my cousin move in after she lost her apartment, even though it caused a massive family fight and upset my parents. AITA for refusing to let my sister's wedding plans interfere with my mental health. I, 29F, have always had a complicated relationship with my older sister, Emily, 32F. Growing up, she was the golden child, smart, charming, and always the center of attention, while I was the quiet one who preferred reading in my room over participating in school events. Despite the imbalance, we had moments of genuine connection, especially during our teenage years when we would secretly watch movies late at night or share clothes. But as adults, our differences became more pronounced. Emily got engaged last year, and while I was genuinely happy for her, I was immediately stressed by the implications. Weddings have never been my thing. Large gatherings trigger my anxiety, and I have a history of social phobia that sometimes makes even small family dinners overwhelming. I had been in therapy for a few years and had made some progress, but I still need to set firm boundaries to protect my mental health. I tried to communicate this to Emily early on, but she seemed to brush it off, saying that this was her once-in-a-lifetime day, and she wanted me to be fully involved. The trouble started when she asked me to be her maid of honor. At first, I said yes because I didn't want to disappoint her, but almost immediately I regretted it. The responsibilities were enormous. Organizing bridal showers, helping with seating arrangements, coordinating with vendors, and making sure every detail ran smoothly. I explained to Emily that I could support her emotionally and attend the wedding, but I couldn't take on all the logistical tasks. She reacted with shock and guilt-tripping. She told me I was letting her down as a sister and selfish for thinking about my comfort over her happiness. We compromised a bit. I agreed to help with one event, the bridal shower, but insisted I needed assistance from the other bridesmaids. Emily agreed reluctantly, but then kept adding small tasks, like handling RSVPs, coordinating with the florist, and helping with DIY decorations. Each time I declined, she accused me of being difficult and unsupportive. I tried to explain my mental health issues again, this time showing her messages from my therapist recommending limits on social obligations. But Emily claimed I was using anxiety as an excuse and that I was making her feel guilty for wanting her sister's support. Our conversations escalated into shouting matches, usually ending with Emily storming off or me retreating to avoid a panic attack. A week before the bridal shower, Emily asked me to deliver the decorations to the venue. I explained that transportation and carrying heavy boxes would be physically and mentally exhausting, and I asked if one of the other bridesmaids could do it. She flipped out, saying I was disrespecting her wishes and not caring about the wedding at all. I stood firm and told her I would attend the shower, but wouldn't handle any of the setup. She accused me of ruining the event and sent me several angry texts in the middle of the night, calling me selfish and claiming I was tearing the family apart. The night of the bridal shower, I showed up, kept to myself, and tried to be helpful where I could without overextending. Emily was cold toward me the entire time. She whispered to our mother that I was barely even there and not supportive, and she publicly praised the other bridesmaids for handling everything. I left feeling upset, but relieved I'd set my boundaries. Since then, the tension has been unbearable. Emily has refused to discuss anything with me unless I agree to take on more tasks, and she keeps posting passive-aggressive comments on social media about how siblings should step up for each other. Family members have taken sides, with some saying I should have just done it for Emily, and others supporting my right to prioritize mental health. My parents are frustrated with me because they want a perfect wedding for Emily and think I'm overreacting. My friends have been supportive, saying that Emily is being unreasonable and that I did the right thing by protecting my mental health. I've offered alternative ways to help, like helping design the invitations or attending appointments with her, but Emily dismisses these as not enough. I feel like I'm stuck between wanting to be there for my sister and not wanting to sabotage my own mental health. I genuinely love Emily and want her to have a beautiful wedding, but the constant pressure and guilt tripping are making me feel anxious and depressed. I'm worried that if I try to participate more, I'll have a breakdown before the actual wedding day. On the other hand, if I continue to refuse certain responsibilities, I might be permanently damaging our relationship. AITA for refusing to let my sister's wedding plans interfere with my mental health? I feel like I'm being reasonable, but everyone around me seems to think I should just deal with it for Emily's sake. I'm scared that no matter what I do, I'm going to be labeled selfish and possibly lose the connection I have with my sister. AITA for refusing to let my sister use my house for her wedding after she insulted me at Thanksgiving? I, 32F, have always been close to my family, especially my sister, Rachel, 29F. We grew up in a small town, and although we now live in different cities, we've remained very connected. Over the years, I've hosted countless family gatherings, birthdays, and holidays at my home, which I bought about 3 years ago. I live in a modest but cozy house, and I take a lot of pride in maintaining it. I've always been happy to have family over, but apparently, that generosity has limits that my sister recently tested. Rachel got engaged last year, and from the moment she got the ring, she started talking about her wedding nonstop. She and her fiancé, Tyler, 30M, have been together for about 5 years. They're very sweet together, but Rachel has always had a tendency to get very controlling when it comes to planning events. I don't mind helping, and I've tried to be supportive, but she's been increasingly demanding over the past few months. About 2 months ago, she mentioned she wanted to have her wedding at my house. I was surprised because, while my home is spacious for everyday life, it's definitely not designed to host large formal events. She claimed she loved the backyard and that it would be perfect for the wedding of her dreams. I explained politely that my backyard isn't really set up for that kind of event, and I also mentioned the costs associated with renting chairs, tents, tables, and other things we would need. I suggested that maybe she could look into a nearby park or a friend's property that would accommodate her guest list, which is about 120 people. She seemed disappointed, but didn't push the issue much at the time. Fast forward to Thanksgiving last month. Our entire extended family gathers at my house every year. It's a lot of work, but I genuinely enjoy hosting, so I always volunteer. Rachel and Tyler were already in town, and they seemed to be in a good mood initially. Things started to go sideways after dinner when the conversation turned to weddings. Rachel mentioned again, very casually, that she was still hoping to have her wedding at my house. I reminded her politely that it wasn't really feasible, especially considering the size of her guest list and the logistics involved. I suggested she look at venues that could handle the number of people she wants. That's when she snapped. She raised her voice and said, "I can't believe you're saying no. This is your sister. I thought family meant helping each other. You're so selfish, always thinking about yourself and your precious little house. You're ridiculous." I was stunned. I tried to explain again that it wasn't about me being selfish, it's about practicality, but she wasn't listening. She accused me of being cheap, controlling, and impossible to please. Tyler tried to mediate, but Rachel kept going on, and before I knew it, we were all sitting in awkward silence while she ranted. The rest of the family was uncomfortable, but they didn't say much. My parents later told me they thought Rachel was overreacting, but it was still stressful. After Thanksgiving, I decided to sit down with Rachel privately to have a calm conversation. I told her I understood how much she wanted her wedding at my home, but I needed her to respect that it isn't a practical venue for the number of guests she wants. I also told her that insulting me in front of the family was unacceptable. She responded by saying that I was overreacting and that I was holding her back from having the perfect day. She refused to acknowledge that her behavior at Thanksgiving was hurtful. I realized that no matter what I said, she was going to try to pressure me into letting her have the wedding at my house. So I made a decision. I sent her a message saying that I could not host her wedding at my house and that my decision was final. I told her that if she wanted to continue our relationship, she needed to respect my boundaries. She replied angrily, saying that I was destroying her dreams and that I was a terrible sister. Our parents called me afterward, trying to convince me to reconsider for the sake of family harmony. I explained my reasoning calmly. They were disappointed, but they seemed to understand eventually. Since then, Rachel has been giving me the silent treatment. She hasn't spoken to me except for a few curt messages where she accuses me of being selfish and controlling. Our parents have been caught in the middle, trying to mediate, but they also recognize that my home is my responsibility and that I shouldn't feel obligated to accommodate unreasonable requests, especially after being insulted. Some of my extended family members have reached out privately, saying they think I was right to set boundaries, but that they wish it hadn't caused a rift. I've been feeling guilty and stressed about the situation. I want to support Rachel and be a good sister, but I also feel that she crossed a line by insulting me in front of everyone and expecting me to give in to a request that is not realistic. I've tried to communicate calmly and reasonably, but she refuses to listen. At the same time, I don't want our relationship to deteriorate completely because of this. I've considered trying to make amends in other ways, like helping her plan the wedding elsewhere, but I also don't want to give in to her demands just because she pressured me. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to let my sister use my house for her wedding after she insulted me at Thanksgiving. I feel like I'm protecting my home and my mental health, but part of me worries that I'm being too rigid or unfair. AITA for refusing to let my sister bring her therapy goat to my wedding and causing a family meltdown. I never thought I would be the kind of person writing one of these stories, but my family insists I'm being heartless and dramatic, while my friends say the situation is absurd. I am honestly starting to question my own judgment. I am 29F, and I recently married my husband, Mark, who is 31M. We have been planning our wedding for almost a year. It was not a huge luxury event, but it was still a pretty formal ceremony at a historic venue with a garden and an indoor hall. The venue had a very strict rule about animals because of their antique flooring and landscaping. The only exception they allowed was legitimate service animals. My younger sister, Lily, is 26. Lily has always been what my parents call sensitive. Growing up, she had anxiety and struggled socially. I always tried to support her. When we were teenagers, I used to defend her at school and include her in my friend group so she wouldn't feel alone. About a year ago, Lily started telling everyone she had an emotional support goat named Daisy. At first, I thought she was joking. She lives on the outskirts of town, and apparently one of her neighbors had goats, and she got attached to one. Eventually, she actually adopted it. To be clear, Daisy is a real goat. Not a metaphor, not a nickname, an actual goat that lives in Lily's yard. Lily started bringing Daisy to family gatherings. The first time was at my parents' barbecue. Daisy wandered around, eating napkins and trying to chew on the tablecloth. My dad thought it was hilarious. My mom filmed it for Facebook. I was the only one who thought maybe this was getting a little ridiculous. Over the past year, Lily has become convinced that Daisy helps her anxiety so much that she brings the goat everywhere she can. She has posted pictures of Daisy in a little vest that says emotional support animal. When wedding planning started, Lily asked early on if Daisy could come. I laughed because I assumed she was kidding. She was not. I explained that the venue only allowed service animals and that a goat would absolutely not be allowed inside. Lily immediately got quiet and said that Daisy is essential for her emotional stability in crowded situations. I tried to compromise. I told her she could bring a friend, take breaks outside, or even skip the ceremony and come to the reception if that felt easier. She said none of those options would help because Daisy is what keeps her calm. About 3 months before the wedding, she sent me links to websites explaining emotional support animals and how they help people with anxiety. I read them, but they mostly talked about housing rights in airplanes, not private wedding venues. I called the venue coordinator just to be sure, and she literally thought I was joking when I asked if a goat could attend. Well, I told Lily the final answer was no, She got really upset and said I was prioritizing aesthetics over her mental health. She told our parents I was excluding her. My parents called me and asked if I could just make an exception. I explained that it wasn't even my rule and that the venue would not allow it. My mom suggested maybe Daisy could stay tied up in the garden during the ceremony. I pointed out that tying a goat to a tree at a formal wedding sounded like something that would become a viral internet video for all the wrong reasons. Things escalated about a month before the wedding. Lily said that if Daisy could not attend, she might not be able to come at all. My parents said I should reconsider because family should come before venue policies. I finally snapped and said that if Lily could not attend a 2-hour ceremony without a goat, then maybe she needed professional help instead of livestock. That comment went over very badly. My parents accused me of mocking her mental health. Lily stopped talking to me completely. The wedding happened last weekend. Lily did not come. My parents came, but were clearly unhappy the whole time. Mine even asked me during the reception where the famous goat was, which made me want to disappear into the floor. Since then, my phone has been blowing up with messages from relatives saying I should have been more understanding. My cousin said weddings are about family, and that one goat would not have ruined anything. But the thing is, I genuinely think a goat at a formal indoor venue would have ruined a lot of things. My husband says the situation is ridiculous and that we made the right call. My parents say I chose a building over my sister. So now I'm sitting here after my honeymoon wondering if I was actually being unreasonable. AITA for refusing to give my sister the money I inherited from our grandmother, even though she says she needs it more than I do. 34F, lost my grandmother last year. She was a huge part of my life growing up. My parents both worked long hours when I was a kid, so my grandma watched me after school, helped me with homework, and honestly felt more like a second parent than just a grandparent. My younger sister Lily, 30F, was also close to her, but in a very different way. Lily loved Grandma, but was never around as much because she moved out early and has always been more focused on her social life and traveling. When my grandmother passed away, she left behind a modest inheritance. It wasn't life-changing money, but it was still a significant amount. In her will she divided it between the two of us, but she left me about twice as much as Lily. At first I thought it might have been a mistake, but when the lawyer explained everything, it turned out my grandma had intentionally written it that way because she said I had helped her more during the last years of her life. For context, during the last 5 years of her life, my grandmother's health declined. She had mobility issues and needed help with groceries, appointments, and basic things around the house. I live only 20 minutes away, so I visited her several times a week. I drove her to medical appointments, helped manage her bills when she got confused about them, and sometimes stayed overnight when she was feeling unwell. Lily lives about 2 hours away and visited maybe once every few months. I never held that against her. She had her own life and job, and I didn't expect her to drop everything. But my grandma clearly noticed the difference. After the inheritance was finalized, Lily called me and asked how much I received. I was honest and told her. She went quiet for a moment and then said it wasn't fair. She said Grandma must have been manipulated or confused when writing the will because she loved us equally. I told her I didn't influence anything, and I didn't even know about the difference until the lawyer explained it. Lily didn't argue much at that moment, but the conversation felt tense. A few weeks later, Lily called again and told me she was struggling financially. She and her boyfriend had recently bought a house, and apparently their mortgage payments were higher than expected. She said unexpected repairs came up, and they were now in debt. She then asked if I would give her a portion of my inheritance, so things would be more equal. I told her I was sorry she was having financial trouble, but I didn't feel comfortable giving away the money Grandma left me. I already had plans for part of it, including paying off some of my student loans and putting the rest into savings for my daughter's future education. Lily got really upset and said I was being selfish. She argued that Grandma probably didn't fully understand what she was doing when she wrote the will and that morally the money should be split evenly between us. I reminded her that Grandma was mentally sharp until the very end and handled all of her legal paperwork with a lawyer. Then Lily said something that really bothered me. She said that if Grandma gave me more money just because I helped her more, that was unfair because I chose to help while Lily had other priorities. She said family shouldn't reward one person more than another. The situation got worse when she told our parents and some extended relatives. My mom called me and said technically the money is mine, but asked if I could at least give Lily some of it to keep the peace. A few cousins also messaged me saying that money shouldn't come between sisters. What frustrates me is that no one seems to acknowledge the time and effort I put into helping Grandma during those years. I never expected anything in return. I did it because I loved her. But now it feels like people are acting as if the extra inheritance is something I somehow unfairly took from Lily. Lily has continued bringing it up in family group chats and even made a comment at a recent family dinner saying that some people care more about money than family. That comment was clearly aimed at me and made things extremely awkward. I'm starting to feel guilty because the tension is affecting family gatherings. But at the same time, I don't think it's fair for everyone to pressure me into giving away something that was intentionally left to me. So now I'm stuck wondering if I'm being unreasonable. On one hand, the inheritance was legally and intentionally given to me by my grandmother. On the other hand, my sister is struggling financially and believes I'm being selfish for not sharing. AITA for refusing to give my sister part of the inheritance our grandmother left specifically to me. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.